official video. We've got Glenn's Supra here, and as you can tell by the title in the video, we're doing a swap on it. I'd just like to apologise in advance for the haggardness of the video. This is our first one. Yeah, we just want to bring you along for the journey. It's not a how-to, it's just how we did it and things that we did for it. Yeah, so come along for the journey with us, and yeah, hope you enjoy it. And there it is, one empty engine bay. See, we've swapped over the AC compressor from the 2JZ. As you can see, the compressor lines are vastly different between the two engines and cars. So we're in the process of swapping the 2J engine mounts onto the 1J, and at first glance they appear pretty much the same bolt pattern, going to line up the same. But if you can see up here, there is approximately 3 different orientations that you can mount the engine mounts onto the block. If we try and put the 2J one where the 1J one come from, one of the bolts doesn't line up. If we move it up here a little bit, it lines up. So, little tricky one there, guys. Copy the motor that you're pulling it off. As we've got most of the ancillaries bolted onto the engine now, we've got the engine mount brackets under there, we've got the Supra compressor and the 1J power steering pump with the 2J line on it. Last thing we got to do before we bolt it on and put the clutch and everything on is bolt the sump on. So I'll show you in a sec what we've done for that.
This is the 1J sump and this is the 2J GE sump, and the reason why we swapped it is because the actual sump hits the cross member, so that's why we went with the rear sump. And they already have like a turbo drain, like it's already made for it, and we just have to drill a hole and then tap the threads there, and then we can just get the fitting off the 1J and put it on the 2J.
Just started to bolt the sump on, and we've come across our first little dilemma with the situation. So we're going to pull off the oil, well, it's oil feed and return in this stock Toyota Turbo. Going to pull it off, chop it, weld it, make it work. As you can see, guys, we've had to modify the turbo drain due to the front sump location. We just sort of cut it through there, rotated, re-welded, popped it back on, like you'd never know. Perfect. As you can see, the 1J VVTi is all buttoned up, ready to go into the Supra. We've got clutch and firewall bolted on, 2JZG rear sump bolted on, modified, ready to go, 2JZG engine mount brackets and engine mounts, and all the little bits and pieces that we need so far, ready to go in. So do a bit of a time lapse and see if we can get this in. Oh my God. Now we've got to rotate it. So if you can try and lift the motor up this way, because it's about 10 mil off rotation. Hell yes! Oh my God. Alright everyone, as you can see, the 1J is now in its new home. Just took a little bit of wrestling with the two of us, but Glenn and I managed to line it all up with the gearbox and get it in. So now comes the tedious task of buttoning everything, all the little bits up. So yeah, and then working out the cooler piping, exhaust, making a run. Alright, so now comes the fun part, the stuff that we sort of specialise in. Making the 1J loom and the 2J loom merge together so that it becomes a plug and play solution. Obviously there's a couple of things that the Supra loom has that the 1JZ loom doesn't have. Progressive steering solenoid, extra injectors, different body plugs, the usual. So basically what's entailed is stripping them right down, pulling parts out of the Supra loom, adding it into the 1JZ loom, and pulling excess stuff out of the 1JZ loom that plugged into the chaser that it came from. Right everyone, so we're coming to the pointy end of the stick now. Glenn's busted his arse out, getting the wiring finished. He's integrated all the 1J and the 2J loom together where required. We've got radiator back in, we've got water in, ready to bleed up. We've got it mostly there. Got to do cooler and exhaust work still, but I don't know, we'll give it a go, see if you got the wiring right. Take it away, Glenn. What we're looking at here is some oil coming out of the compressor side of the turbo. We've suspected that the front oil seal has let go, so we'll be getting onto that in another video most likely. Alright, so this is Glenn's Intercooler. He picked it up for a steal on Gumtree, which is our Craigslist if you're watching from the States. It's a genuine HKS kit, pretty 90s spec. It's got mild steel piping. Yeah, it's to suit the Supra turbo, and now we just got to, it seems neither of us have ever fitted one to a Supra before. We've got to treat it as a bit of a jigsaw puzzle and see what we come up with.
When the hose clamp's too big, so you join two together. Or too small, actually. Too small, yeah. We'll edit that out.
Hose clamp tool, bloody godsend. As we can see, we have one cooler kit fitted up. Yes, a couple of hose clamps will need to be replaced, but it's on there for the moment. One thing we're missing, which would normally come with the 2JZ GTE stock piping, is this pipe that goes from here up to here. But obviously it's not going to work in our application anyway, so we'll have to fabricate something up for that. Alright, so what we've got here is a flange to go on the factory cast elbow. Glenn here spent a few hours cutting it out of some 8mm mild steel plate. You can't get them from anywhere easily, and we're only mating it up to the 2.5-inch exhaust system that he currently had on the car. It's just a temporary solution while we run a standard ECU W58 gearbox. It's not going to be pushing anything severe, are you, Glenn? Not at the moment. So it'll do for the time being to get it all going, and then later on we'll get a flange straight off the back of the turbo and make a full 3-inch system for it. Alright, and here we have one glorious dump pipe. Definitely not our finest work, but yeah, homemade flange, MIG weld, TIG weld, bit of black paint, some reused second-hand bits of tube. It'll do the job. Happy, Glenn? Let's get it on there. And there we have it. One intercooler pipe. Needs a slight bit of adjustment. And then we just got to make an intake pipe somehow, fit a pod filter in there, and ready for the road. Well, nearly. Right, so we're just about fully buttoned up, minus a couple of tiny bits and pieces. Glenn's gonna see if it moves under its own power now. Power steering needs a bit of a bleed. Alright, so there's a couple little bits and pieces that we did on the engine that we didn't really film, wasn't really worth filming, and we sort of just wanted to get in and get it done, but Glenn's going to show you the last couple little bits that we had to do to complete the job.
Right, so I bought a a 2J VVTi throttle cable for the JZA80, this Supra, and basically it was a little bit too long, so I took the bracket off the 1J and traced the bit that bolts onto the intake manifold and cut it off where it bolts up to the intake manifold, and then weld like a piece that I just traced and made. So
that was the cheapest and most readily available option for a throttle cable, wasn't it?
yeah, there was a non-VVTi one, but the VVTi seemed to be longer on forum, so I just took that one because you don't want it to be too short.
Yeah, that's right. And it just all bolted up underneath the kick panel, no dramas,
Yeah,
hey? All factory.
Yep.
And what do we do with the power steering?
So basically I got one off a 1J Sora.
Again, nice and cheap, easily to obtain.
Yeah, and had to get a hose that goes to the pump to the reservoir, but everything else is just chop a little bit and then it goes on. So
And we just
made a bracket for it that suits. It's just steel piece, 2.5 mil steel bracket.
nothing pretty, but it looks the part. If we didn't tell you, you'd never know that it wasn't supposed to be there like that. Although the factory one is there like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so looks the part, does the job. Power steering reservoir, like nothing special. So, and then that was just a LS radiator hose from our local auto parts store. And we you've probably seen in one of the other clips, the intake was a little bit different. We sort of just had to fit it there like that because the airflow meter is a painful thing to deal with room-wise. But once Glenn goes high mount and has a real good ECU and something more substantial, it'll look a little bit better. Won't have as much room constraints, and yeah. There we have it. 1JZ VVTi swap JZA80 Supra. We just finished gassing up the aircon, which is mighty cold, by the way. Glenn took it home yesterday, took it for a good drive, no dramas at all.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Yeah, not much more to say on it. If you've got any questions or things you want more detail on, please leave a comment. How did you think we did with the video? Leave us some feedback. We'd love to know how we went and where we can improve. Just remember, we did film this all on a camera phone. This is our first video. We are still learning, we are still playing. You'll notice from the start of the video, we didn't quite have as much footage on how we went through it all, but we're improving all the time, so please, leave us some feedback if you wouldn't mind. And we'll see you in the next video.